gardening, baking, fermenting, cleaning and taking care of my house, all with babies and kids underfoot. Those are my favorite things to be doing. So that's what we're going to do today.
Got to do a little kitchen cleanup first, and then I'm going to start with my bread. So my mental prioritization at this point, I've been doing this momming thing for like 13, 14 years now. So, I can think pretty quickly like what I need to do first. And I know that I need to get my bread dough going first because that can be proofing, it can be rising while I'm doing all of these other things. And while I do that, I'm going to listen to Candace and Nick Fuentes. I've been waiting to listen to this interview, very excited. This is like how I treat myself. When I know I've got a lot of dishes or kitchen work or laundry, then I will either listen to something really good that I've been waiting to listen to an audiobook, or I will just read in between tasks.
All right, so I thought that the Candace and Nick interview was good, but there's just a lot of squabbling. And I think what it boils down to is that she's a 35, 36-year-old wife and mom, and he's a 26-year-old unmarried guy. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those things. They're just in very different seasons of life with different perspectives. But they're both on the same highway, the same Catholic highway to the social kingship of Christ and making America, putting America first. And I think they should just stay in their lanes. So that's my 2 cents. I like Candace. I like Nick. I just don't necessarily see the benefit of them collaborating. I will say this. There was a segment where Candace was kind of nagging Nick about not being married. But, I actually agreed with his take. He is a 26-year-old guy. And what he does, he's put himself in a position to where I just don't know if it would be conducive of him to have a wife and children where he's at, like at the place in life that he's at. And I actually think that takes a lot of wisdom and restraint and maturity to recognize that if you're a young person and you want to get married, you feel called to marriage, but you're just not ready to, especially as a man, you're not ready to provide for a wife and kids, not just financially, but with your time and attention, then maybe delaying that just a little bit until you're in that place. I think that's actually pretty wise. So, that was just my 2 cents there. So, just doing some normal baking today with my burger bun recipe from my blog that I think I like tripled it, and then I'm making it into a Pullman loaf, making some buns. And yeah, I believe that's all I was doing on this particular day. And it can be really challenging to try to get a lot of things done when you have a lot of kids. I get a lot of messages like that. Like, how do you get anything done? How do you manage to find time to read when you have little ones? Well, for me, it's a little bit different because I have older kids as well. So my oldest kids are 13, 12. My ages are 13, 12, almost 10, 3, and 1. So the big kids, keep the babies entertained a lot. Like the little guys just want to be around them. They're entertained by their older siblings. So, that is a huge help as far as me getting things done.
Taking a quality probiotic is so important, not just for gut health, but for overall health. But maybe you have wondered in the past, like I have, is the probiotic I'm taking actually working? And that's a great question. So let's talk about one that really works. I started taking Seeds DSO1 Daily Symbiotic over a year ago because it is an intentionally formulated 24 strain probiotic blend with prebiotic fiber included to help with absorption that has been clinically shown to improve digestive health, skin clarity, and gut immunity. Whether you're looking to work specifically on gut health, like having more regularity or experiencing less bloating after meals, which is definitely something that I have noticed when I'm regular with including probiotics in my routine is that I don't bloat after meals, and that's really important to know that we're digesting our food. Or maybe you have some other kinds of symptoms like skin issues or brain fog or low energy. Seed is a great option to help you reseed your microbiome with beneficial bacteria. My monthly refills from Seed come in compostable little packages. I'm gonna open one up because I need to refill my jar, and I just wanna show you their ViaCap capsule within a capsule system that has been clinically shown to ensure the probiotic actually reaches your colon, where it's going to do the bulk of its work rather than being killed in your stomach by digestive enzymes and stomach acids. So in the outer capsule here, you have prebiotic fiber, and when you open it up, then on the inside, you can see the prebiotic fiber here, but then on the inside, you actually have the probiotic capsule. If you are ready to invest in your gut health and make probiotics a daily habit, then I have a code for you. You can use my code, Hopewell25, to get 25% off your first order of Seed's DSO1 Daily Synbiotic. I will put my code and my link in the description below the video, so just tap the more button below the video and check it out.
Probiotics should just be a normal given part of all of our lives, and you can actually make your own probiotics, which is something we're going to talk about later in the video.
Bread dough is mixing. The freeze dryer is cooled. You have to turn it on like 15 minutes before you actually put your trays in so the chamber can cool. And I'm ready to get started. So when you freeze things in the tray in advance, it actually cuts down on the freeze drying time, because there's two components to freeze drying. It's gonna be shocking to you guys. It's freezing and then drying. So when you do the freezing first, then it just gets to the drying portion faster. So last time I did bone broth in the freeze dryer, I did not remove the fat layer, and so the consistency was off. It just wasn't like a dry, nice powder when it was done. I did remove the layer of fat. Like I made my bone broth, let it cool in the fridge, remove the fat, and so this is just the liquid. Hopefully I get a better result this time.
I did not film the final result, so here we're just loading up the trays of pre-frozen bone broth. Anyway, it took less than 24 hours to freeze dry this batch of bone broth. I didn't film the final results. I can say that it was fully dry, but it just still had kind of a funny consistency. It didn't break up into a powder like I had hoped it would. And maybe on the next video, I'll show you what I mean. However, it still reconstituted perfectly. So I tried some out. My freeze-dried bone broth, I added it to some boiling water, and the end result of that reconstitution was delicious bone broth. So I was happy with that. That was fine. It just wasn't the texture that I was hoping for. So I'm in the midst of my tasks that I was doing on this Saturday, just getting a roast going. I make roast all the time, like at least once a week. I love roast beef. There's just so many things you can do with it. If you have a roast prepared, you can make it into sandwiches, serve it in a stew. You can shred it up and add some really good seasonings and like make tacos. You can make a shepherd's pie. You can make a pot pie. So many possibilities. I find that as long as I have meat thought out and prepared, I can come up with anything. I can get creative. One of my favorite creative things to make is kolaches, and I get really creative with that. Like whatever meat I have, plus some cheese, plus something else, I'll just make that into a kolache. So like if you had shredded roast beef, you could make I don't know, you could make like a Philly cheesesteak kind of style kolache. Just lots of possibilities. And I actually have my sourdough kolache recipe on my blog. So every time I mention a recipe, it's usually on the blog. Not every time, I guess I should say. But my recipes that I mention or that I show are usually on my blog. You could just go to Hopewell Heights blog and type in the search bar what I talked about in a video, and it should pop up. I don't know about Googling things. If you Google Hopewell Heights kolaches, if it would pop up, but you can definitely try that. However, if you just go to the blog and type it into the search bar, then you'll always see that. So my bun slash bread dough combo that I was making proofed up really nicely. That is a nice thing about summer is, with heat, your dough is going to proof so much faster than in the winter. As you can see here, I weighed the dough that I needed to make a Pullman loaf, and I know that for a Pullman loaf pan, it's ideal to have about 1,100 grams of dough. So I just weighed out 1,100 grams and then divided the rest of the dough to make buns, because I was actually going to make roast beef sandwiches on this particular day, since I wanted to get a lot of stuff done. We had a ball game later that day, so just wanted to make sure I had something quick and easy on hand. And, as usual, just nursing the baby as I go. You just kind of get used to it. Like, you don't even notice that you're nursing a baby anymore after so long. I will say that this baby, my 5th baby, every baby, the nursing relationship is a little bit different. Some of them nurse a lot more frequently than others. Some of them are more relaxed and laid back when they're nursing. They kind of just like to sit and cuddle. And some of them are what I like to call nursing gymnasts. Now, this 5th baby, not only is he a nursing gymnast, he is a very aggressive nursing gymnast. So that is hilarious. We laugh about that all the time. So just getting some cleaning done, cleaning my windows while I'm waiting for my buns to proof. I always try to make good use of my time. Okay, I got through a little over half of my list. I got all my cleaning done, made my bread, got laundry done. I did not get to the garden stuff though. I just wasn't feeling it today. Like I said, it's a Saturday, and I just didn't have as much energy today as I thought I might. And we have to leave here in about an hour to go to a ball game, and I don't want to push it. That's something that as I get older, I'm finally learning, is not to push myself until the last minute with tasks when I need to go somewhere, because I'm the type of person that for my whole life I've been I chronically run late, and it's because I always think I can just fit in one more thing. Well, I'm working on that, because that is a really bad habit. It's something that really bothers me about myself. It drives my husband crazy. Nobody likes that when somebody is chronically late. So anyway, I'm cutting it off. I'm not going to try to squeeze in anything else off my list today. I am ready, dressed and ready. Gonna get the little guys ready. Like I said, I have an hour. And then I'm gonna go ahead and eat, because I personally don't like to eat later in the evening. I am having liver and onions, and my family will not be having that. I made that roast earlier for them, and then I've got buns that are going to be coming out of the oven. They're just gonna have roast beef sandwiches, but yeah, I'm gonna get my dose of liver in today. I am eating liver a few times a week right now, just as part of potential conception preparation. I'm not trying to get pregnant. I'm not trying not to get pregnant. It's just a possibility. And so I want to be mindful to really get my nutrients in. And I did experience some anemia after I had the last baby, and I hope I'm recovered from that. I don't really know. Now that I'm talking about it, it's a good reminder I actually need to make an appointment to get some blood work done with my chiropractor, just to check in on things. I feel a lot better than I did when I got the results that I was anemic initially, so we'll see. All right, I've got my leeks, my onions. I usually add in some garlic, I'll mince up some garlic to put in here, but I just didn't feel like it. I'm just not feeling it today, you guys. Sometimes you just have those days where you just kind of do the minimum. I did the things that had to be done. I cleaned the house. I fed everybody. But I'm just not going to mince up garlic today. That's where I draw the line. Don't have it in me. All right, got my liver. Just going to add this in. Skillet with the leeks and onions, and then salt and pepper, kind of keep it basic.
sauerkraut. So, you know, cooking and heating the sauerkraut, that will kill a lot of the live probiotics. But that's all right. You know, I can add in some juice, some of the brine or juice from this, or I can add some more fresh sauerkraut on top when I'm done if I want the live probiotic aspect. By the way, home fermented sauerkraut, if you don't know how to do that, you can go to my blog. The recipe instructions are there. It is very easy. Liver and onions nice and caramelized.
We ended up leaving a little bit early, so I just ate my liver and onions. The roast beef was not quite ready, so I just cut into my loaf of bread a little bit before it was cooled and ready to cut into, but that's okay. And I made the kids sandwiches and then saved the roast beef for the next day. As you can see behind me, it is onion harvest time. I'm in zone 6B and it is the second week of July. My onions are nice and ready because you can see the tops have all flopped over. So that's how you can remember when to harvest your onions. It rhymes. Flop and top, floppy tops. They need floppy tops that have fallen over. So I'll show you a few onions that, you know, could wait to be harvested because the tops are still standing up, but most of these are have floppy tops and they're ready. You know, depending on when I plant my onions, I've harvested as early as late June here in zone 6. I never have harvested as late as August though. It's always late June to early mid-July. I actually think this is going to be my latest harvest date. So let's take a closer look and just talk a little bit more about harvesting onions. You know, you can really start harvesting your onions anytime just to use them fresh. So, you know, as soon as they start getting a little bulb on them, if you want to harvest green onions and cook with them, then that's fine. And I do. I come out here and pick onions, smaller onions, you know, throughout the spring and early summer to use in the kitchen. So these are just a few smaller bulbs, but really any time that your onions have started to bulb up is fine to harvest them unless you want to store them long term. If you are going to be storing your onions and you want them to last as long as possible, then you want to make sure that they have floppy tops, that they are not still in that growing stage. I have grown onion from seed before and they did great, but for the last few years I've been getting little onion plants from Patterson's a type of onion. Dixondale Farms. Good grief, I can't think today. So I'll link that in the description. Dixondale Farms, that's where I get my onion starts and they do fabulously. My favorite kinds are these blush onions. You can store blush onions for a few months. Stems are still green. They still have quite a bit of water in them. They need to dry out a bit before they're ready for storage. So all I'm going to do today, this will be a pretty quick painless process. I'm just going to pull these onions out of the ground. I am going to let them cure right here on the ground, laid out in a single layer so that air and circulation can get to them. There are different ways to do this. You know, I actually have really nice wireless mics that I could wear outside so that you wouldn't hear the wind. I'm just too lazy to do it. Like this YouTube channel could be so much better if I put a little bit more effort in, but I always forget. And I just don't. Okay, there are all of my blush onions pulled up, ready to cure for the next few days to a week. We'll see if I leave them out there for the entire curing process. So I want them to cure for 1 to 2 weeks until the stems, stalks, whatever, are mostly dried out, because I am going to braid these onions. So I don't want them to dry out so much to where all of these, you know, stems are crisp like this. Otherwise they won't be strong enough to braid. I want them to be somewhere in between like these really, you know, green ones. Maybe something like this is what I'm looking for. All right, we're pulling up a couple beds of potatoes here. You'll see the potato harvest a little bit later in the video from today, like my spring potato harvest. It's definitely not enough to last a year, but it'll last us a few months, and I'm going to plant some potatoes behind it to harvest in the fall. So right now I am making not sauerkraut, but coleslaw, which is the same, like fermented coleslaw, which is the same exact concept of making sauerkraut. I'm just chopping up veggies. The base is cabbage, but chopping up some other things too, carrot, onion, garlic. I've got some herbs and, of course, salt. That's the key to fermentation. Adding in my salt here and just going to make this into fermented coleslaw, which I'll explain how I use that a little bit later. So, originally this task was on my Saturday to-do list when we started filming this video, but it ended up being drawn out over the course of a few days because honestly, I just have not had as much ambition with getting a ton of tasks done around the house. And there's a reason for that I'll probably be sharing soon. And it's really just to do with a lot of things that my husband is working on, and I'm taking a lot more interest in that than my task, but that's a conversation for another
You can
day.
see the difference in color in these 2 jars of kraut. This is more or less the same kraut. This is the batch that we made together. This is one that I have made, and this one has been fermenting for 3 or 4 days. So you can see that it's getting to be purple because the color in the purple cabbage is just very strong and kind of overpowers everything. This one I just made yesterday because I went into town, went to the store, and got some deals on organic produce. So I figured I would just make another big batch. So you can see the difference in color. Now, this big gallon jar, I do not have a fermentation lid that size. So I just have a gallon jar lid fastened on here loosely. And I make sure to burp it, every day or two, which essentially just means I'm letting air out. Now, you can see, even though I just put this together yesterday, there's already lots of little, well, I think maybe you can see all the little bubbles in here, already activity going on. So I will let these each ferment for a couple of weeks. You can label with the Sharpie so you don't forget, how long it's been fermenting, or you can just try it. You can just taste it. 2 to 3 weeks, that seems to be the right amount of time. And then after that, I will store my ferments in cold storage and then either turn them in, just eat them plain, or turn them into like a creamy coleslaw, which for me, when I do that, I just mix up like some homemade mayonnaise, some milk kefir, maybe a little bit of honey or sugar and some seasonings, and add that in for like a creamy coleslaw. Or I just will scoop out a bunch of this and add it to whatever soup I'm making, and it's basically just like pre-chopped and diced fermented veggies. But either way, with just a little bit of work and salt and time, I've taken a huge amount of produce and preserved it. This will last in, once these are fully fermented, they will last in cold storage for several months. I have had sauerkraut stay good in the fridge for a year. A little update on the onions. We're not going to braid them today. We'll probably do that next week. But since we pulled these up, I had my boys move them up onto the porch because we did end up getting some rain. So they are 3 days into the curing process and they look really good. I will give them a few more days to dry out. Some of these stalks still just have quite a bit of moisture to where if I braided them, yeah, just a little too much moisture for my liking. So this is more what I'm looking for. Just more, not quite as bright green and full of moisture. This is what I'm looking for when I want to braid my onions. I still want a little bit of green, but I want them to be drier. So over the next few days, I'll just be checking these out and pulling onions that look like they're in that phase that I want them in, braiding them. And yeah, over the next week, then I'll get all my onion braids done and hung up in the basement. All right, well, that is it for this week. We'll finish up a lot of the projects we started this week in next week's video, so I will see you all then. Before you go, be sure to check out the offer that Seed has for Hopeful Heights subscribers in the description.